Okay, hi. Good morning, everyone. Okay, first of all, I'm very sorry. My laptop chose the most inconvenient time to update. Okay, so I'm very sorry about that. But let's start with the presentation. But before we begin, the presenters, do you need permission to share the screen?
No, sir.
No. All right. For all three groups, no. Okay. If no one needs permission, so let's just begin right away. As usual, you have 15 to 20 minutes with an exception of some groups. So I'll keep that in mind when you are presenting. And I'll remind you of your timing, but this time I'll probably just remind around minute 10, minute 15, and also minute 20. I will not remind you every single minute because that's quite a lot to cover. So I'll just remind you 10, 15, 20 so that at least you know when to kind of like finish and everything. Okay, the order of today's presentation will be A, D, and C. Okay, can we begin with Group A first?
Good morning, sir.
Hi, morning.
Morning, sir.
Okay, good morning.
Sir, I have a question. It's like, before the Q&A section, we do a summary, or after the Q&A section?
You can do the Q&A session first, then you can provide summary after that.
Okay.
So you can open Q&A first, then we'll summarize. But your timing, what I will do is, I'll stop it at, when we go to Q&A, I'll stop your timing. Anything that happens after that, I will not count as the 20 minutes. So if you exceed a little bit in that part, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, since we have 6 of us, is it okay if we exceed a little bit, like 20 minutes?
Okay, define a little bit. Few minutes?
1 minute plus?
1 minute plus is all right.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
All right, yeah. Samuel is wearing so formal, and then we have Alam wearing t-shirt.
Sir, part is like sport teacher. So like
Okay, your role playing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So are you all ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's begin now. All the best for today's presenters.
Can we start, sir?
Yes, you may begin.
Okay. Good morning to everyone here today. Welcome to our online-based forum by Asia Pacific University. I'm Yi Xuan, a lecturer from the School of Business at Asia Pacific University here to associate our conversation on the topic of university students' health. In this present era, there's an increasing number of university students having mental or physical health problems due to different types of reasons. This has become a heated topic among our students, parents, lecturers, and even the Ministry of Health in Malaysia. Therefore, we have our panels here today to have a further discussion on this topic. In this forum, we are honored to have the representative from Malaysia's Ministry of Health, Dr. Samuel Lee, Dr. Harini from Sunway Medical Center, a certified clinical nutritionist, Dr. Millie, an experienced clinical psychologist from Gleneagles Hospital, Mr. Ilalam, a sports teacher in APU and a student representative from APU, Jiayu. Welcome and thank you again to everyone who are able to join us today. Firstly, let us welcome our representative from the Health Ministry of Malaysia, Dr. Samuel Lee, to give us a view of the current scenario about the health of young people in Malaysia.
Hello everyone, I'm Samuel. It is an honor to have the opportunity to be here at APU on behalf of the Health Ministry. Just like countries all around the world, Malaysia is also facing a variety of health problems such as obesity and diabetes. A study in 2020 has shown that about a third of university students in Malaysia are at a moderate or even high risk level of getting obesity, and the numbers are still increasing annually. Even BBC News have quoted Malaysia as the most obese Asian country back in 2014. I strongly believe having healthy diets and eating habits since young is important. Hence, we cooperated with the Ministry of Education to ban a list of unhealthy foods, including fish balls, fries, burgers, and other fried or unhealthy food that have high fat or sugar content from all school canteens. Maybe we can hear from Dr. Harini, a nutritionist's opinion on this.
Hello everyone, I'm Harini, a nutritionist who currently works in Sunway Medical Center. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me today for this forum. I personally believe that it's a good idea to ban unhealthy food in school canteens. Since fried food contains high in trans fats, it could lead to many health issues such as heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and so on, as previously mentioned by Dr. Samuel. Therefore, it is important for education providers to play a key role in promoting lifetime good healthy eating habits in students by providing nutritious meals. In turn, students should also not undervalue the importance of eating healthy food in their lives because it helps them achieve academic success and also as well as optimal growth and development. So healthy eating is not a choice for students, but it is a must.
At this point, students may be thinking why it is a must to follow healthy eating. Perhaps any advice or ways for our university students to eat healthy?
Well, I understand that students have a packed schedule, especially whether they are doing assignments, presentations, final year projects, or examinations. They are more likely to lack the time to eat healthily and instead choose for junk or processed food, which can lead to certain health issues. There are a few tips that might help students in overcoming unhealthy eating habits. My first advice to students is to never skip breakfast. It has been proven that eating a healthy breakfast can help students to enhance their attention span and also focus by improving their cognitive function and making them more attentive in classes. Therefore, students should make it a point to eat nutritious food on a regular basis. Even if you're short on time, just a simple healthy breakfast like boiled eggs, fruit smoothies, or even oatmeal can be had. But never ever miss your breakfast. Moreover, excessive consumption of sugary meals and junk food such as soda drinks, burgers, cakes should be avoided. Sugary or junk food intake causes damage to certain areas of the brain that are important for learning and memory. And the last piece of advice to students is to drink enough water to keep your bodies hydrated. A dehydrated student lacks focus on his or her current projects and is more likely to experience headaches, stress, insomnia, and a loss of interest. So following a healthy diet is very important, and I really hope the students will make a change by following healthy eating habits today onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harini, for the wonderful sharing on the importance of having healthy diet for university students. It is acknowledged that physical activity will also benefit our students' physical health. Let us have Mr. Ilalam to share about it.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here today, and good morning to everyone again. My name is Ilalam, and I am the sport teacher at APU. A healthy life is something that we miss a lot these days, especially in these generations. So I would like to start with defining what is physical health. Physical health physical health represents one dimension of total well-being, and the term refers to the state of your physical body and how well it's operating. Regular physical activity can help students to build strong bones and muscles, control weight, reduce anxiety, and other health issues that Dr. Samuel had mentioned earlier.
Thank you for defining physical health. Now, I would like to ask a question on this. Have you seen any students having any health issues, as you mentioned above, in APU and during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, of course. I have seen many students suffering from different physical health problems. Because APU is an IT-based university, students spend most of their time on their laptop, in front of the laptop, whether for studies or assignments. And in terms of the periods of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are all remaining in our homes and we don't move much, and all university students are taking online classes. This can lead to a variety of illnesses caused by not moving or sitting for a long period of time, including heart issues, body pain, brain damage, obesity, and anxiety.
Mr. Ilalam, may I know what kind of tips will you provide to our students here to improve their physical health at home during the lockdowns?
Yes, sure. Firstly, student can make use of the apps that promote physical exercises, such as Google Fit and MyFitnessPal. And something that makes Google Fit special is Move Minute Goal, in which it allows users to track their progress and encourage users to stand up, drink water, and do other things. The MyFitnessPal app has a very useful feature, which is that you can take a picture for any barcode on any food product, and it will calculate for you how many calories that does this product has, in addition to how many proteins and carbohydrate this product contain. Secondly, doing house chores is also an exercises that students can do first to help their parents and second to exercise and move.
It sounds awesome, and I use the Google Fit app too, which Mr. Ilalam have mentioned earlier, and it is really helpful. In terms of the university, now I'm wondering what can university do to help students improve their physical health?
As we all know, universities and schools have a significant impact on the physical health of students. Where the student comes and sits in schools or universities for more than 6 hours, in addition to the home study hours that the student will study. Therefore, universities and schools must pay attention to the sports sector and motivate students to it. As for example, they can add marks to the students who participate and passes the sports exams and several activities such as marathons, and the winner will has a prize. In addition to the football, basketball, volleyball league for a student in both genders, and to allocate special building where it consists of places dedicated to most sports.
To summarize what Dr. Harimi and Mr. Ilalam have said before, exercising frequently, drinking enough water, and eating healthily protects youngsters from a variety of disease and illness. Dr. Samuel, other than the banning of some unhealthy food from school canteens you have mentioned earlier, what actions did the government and health ministry have took?
Over the years, we have been organizing campaigns and talks at schools to educate students about health. In addition, we have worked with the Malaysian government to introduce the sugar tax on sugar-sweetened beverages in 2019. We want to demotivate people from buying soft drinks to reduce our nation's obesity rate, which can also help reduce the diabetes rate.
I'm sure the actions taken have improved the situation significantly, but what about the plans for the near future?
Well, we plan to keep up with our campaigns and talks at schools and in public. On top of that, we plan to introduce a new subject to schools and universities which will educate students about health education. It will cover about diet, exercise, and sleep. This will educate students about the sicknesses and symptoms caused when they lack certain nutrients or whether they lack sleep or exercise, and advise them on what and what not to do. Moreover, we plan to make all education sectors hold an annual marathon or sport event that is compulsory for participation in order to encourage students to join and get in some good healthy exercise.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. We sincerely hope that it will begin to help and benefit more of the health of our university students. After discussing on the physical health, let us proceed to the mental health part. I believe our psychologist, Dr. Millie, must have more encounters and experiences on these situations. Let us hear from her professional view on this matter. Welcome, Dr. Millie.
Hello everyone, I'm Millie, a psychologist that's currently working at Gleneagles Hospital. It is definitely a pleasure to be here. So throughout my years of working as a psychologist, my research shows that a lot of people tend to think that university students, they do not face a lot of stress because they believe that what university students do are merely just attending classes, passing a few examinations, then have their graduation. However, it is not that case in the current society. University student stress can be tremendous, where it affects many aspects of their lives heavily. University students are eventually exposed to many stressful situations frequently as they need to take on more responsibilities and duties where it can be too much for them to handle. According to the American Psychological Association, so 45% of college students seek for counseling because they are often stressed in their university lives. As in Malaysia, 41.9% of medical students were found to have emotional disorders such as depression, anxiety, and more.
Wow, it does seem that mental health problems that university students face are showing in the figures clearly. What kind of situations do students tend to feel stressed or depressed?
Well, in these days, there have been more students visiting our department as patients eventually to seek for advice and solutions for their own mental health issues. Due to the multiple internal and external expectations placed on students' shoulders, stress has eventually become a component of their academic lives. They are prone to the problems linked with academic stress since they are going through different personal and social transitions day to day. It usually occurs when their ability to cope with the expectations they place on themselves exceeds the ability they must cope. Exams and assignment deadlines, work, troubles with friendships and relationships, financial concerns, and balancing their study and life are all common sources of stress for university students. For instance, a student may develop stress when they face financial issues. The fees for commencing into university these days are eventually not a small figure, so majority of the students do not want to burden their parents with the cost of university. Therefore, they may choose to work for part-time jobs while studying at the same time in order to ease the burden of their parents. However, when they could not find a balance between their studies and work, stress may occur into their lives easily because they feel overwhelmed with the number of tasks that they need to complete with the little amount of time that they have.
Thank you, Dr. Millie. I believe our students' representative here may confront some of the issues that Dr. Millie have mentioned above. Do you want to share, Jayu?
Sure. Thank you for choosing me for this forum. Firstly, adjusting to a new life is a problem faced by most university students when they first enter the university. The first year of university life can be particularly challenging as there will be changes in routine as well as finding new sets of friends. As for university students who come from different countries, they may find it difficult to adapt to the unfamiliar environment and culture. Before stepping into university, I've always thought that university life would be a fun and exciting journey. However, as time goes by, I realize it is the complete opposite. Like what Dr. Millie said, it was pressuring when I learned that I had to manage with so many workloads and not to mention the close submission deadlines between each subject. Other than that, as a university student, we must ensure to keep up with our academic performances and score high grades for the sake of our future career ahead, as well as to be acknowledged by our parents and make them proud. Especially during this lockdown period when classes are conducted online. Without an appropriate study environment, there are more chances where I will get easily distracted by my surroundings, become demotivated to do tasks, and even procrastinate a lot. Therefore, I tend to lose track of my time and my responsibilities focusing in class.
Yes, university life may be a little bit different from primary and secondary schools as there is no more spoon feeding from lectures or parents at this point, and students must learn to be independent. Jai, could you please elaborate more on the other issues you encountered in university?
Of course, time management is also one of the struggles I encountered during my years studying at university. The independence and flexibility of a university setting is way different from secondary school. There is a lot more to take in. Waking up every day, just thinking about the cramped schedules and tons of workload awaiting ahead gives me anxieties and frustrates me a lot. Even during weekends, I no longer spend much time with my families nor hang out with my friends like how I used to. But instead, I start spending most of my time behind closed doors, completing assignments in my room. I even had severe mental breakdowns multiple times from the pressure and eventually found myself having sleep deprivation. And I believe that many other university students can relate to this feeling of constant pressure at some point in their university years as well. One of my friends once attempted self-harm because she was overwhelmed by the amounts of work that needed to be done and even skipped meals to finish her assignments. Honestly, from a student's perspective, university life can indeed be very stressful from time to time.
Thank you, Jiayu. Based on the problems shared by Jiayu, maybe we can have Dr. Millie here to suggest some solutions to reduce all these mental health issues and assist our students to improve their mental health state.
Well, I will be glad to. So, firstly, I recommend students to actually get a good and sufficient sleep because when we sleep, our brain helps our body to repair from the stresses it has faced throughout the day. Many university students tend to feel exhausted, worn down, and overwhelmed because of not getting the necessary 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. This mental health tip is vital because our body cannot manufacture enough serotonin, dopamine, and other chemicals to keep stress, anxiety, and sadness at bay when we do not get enough sleep. Besides, being active is also a beneficial way to improve a person's mental health. Endorphins, as well as dopamine and serotonin, which I've mentioned earlier, are released into the body when we exercise too. These molecules can improve our mood and will gives us a sense of accomplishment. And also, one last important piece of advice which I would like to emphasize for students is to reward yourself after you reach any goal that you have set to achieve. Self-rewarding entails doing something nice for yourself that makes you feel proud and confident about your achievements. This can motivate students to continue their university studies without feeling that much of stress and depression. The balance between study and rest is in fact essential. Now, I truly hope that through this sharing, our university students may have a better understanding on how to take care of their own mental health. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Millie, for outlining the ways to improve mental health for university students. Your explanations allow us to understand what kinds of situations might lead to various mental health disorders and how to avoid or prevent them. Following our panel's discussion, we'll open the floor to our audience for Q&A sections. Please feel free to ask any question you have right now. Okay, we have Vian here. What health issues are there if junk or processed food is consumed a lot? Maybe we can have Harini to explain about this.
Well, first of all, thank you for asking the question. So when people who eat a lot of junk or processed food, you can have there are high chances that you will be obese or have diabetes or even stroke and also high blood pressure. And there are also such cases that are already existent in Malaysia, as previously mentioned by Dr. Samuel.
Okay, thank you, Harini, our nutritionist. Does anyone have any question to ask? Okay, since there's no question, now we have already come to the end of our forum. To sum up everything, students need to be truly aware about the importance of their own mental or physical health. In this forum, our experts coming from different fields today have provided enormous ways and solutions along with the evidence and facts to help us stay healthy, including both mentally and physically. Now thank you for all our panels here, and this is our end of the forum. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Let's talk about the feedback first. Okay. Most of these feedbacks are minor things. They're not something very terrible because I think you did very well. But let's go through the negatives first, as usual. And like I said, these are minor things. Like, for example, let's talk about the introduction. And Yiswen, you will have a lot of comments here, both positive and slightly negative because you're the biggest role for today. But for the introduction, when you were introducing the speaker, right? In the beginning, I thought the momentum was good, but in the middle, you became a bit fast. Like you stopped giving pauses after each of the speaker. So I thought if you have more pauses between the speakers, that will be a bit better because it will allow us to, get connected to the speakers. Like in the beginning, it was good, but somewhere in the middle, you became a bit fast when introducing the speakers. Okay, so that's number one. Okay, and moving on to number two. Jayu's backdrop here. Okay, I felt it probably should have been changed to Miss Jayu because everyone here has like formal title in a sense, like we have Mr. Alam, we have Dr. Samuel and Dr. Harini and the rest. So I thought probably we should have put Miss Jayu there. Even though she's a student representative, we still have to refer to her as Miss because she's a guest of the show. And during this the symposium as well, Jayu was the only one that was not referred by any title. So we have to refer to her as Miss Jayu. Even though she's a student, we have to have that sense of respect, even though, she's a student. So we still have to call her as Miss Jayu. And towards the end, during the Q&A session, I think you probably forgot to refer to Harini as Dr. Harini. But that's a minor thing because throughout the symposium, you did refer to her as Dr. Harini. But if, let's say, she's an actual doctor, she might get very offended because usually people of this title, they're very uptight about, people actually calling them by their title. So be careful. You're lucky Harini is not an actual doctor for today. All right. Moving on from there, delivery. Okay, delivery, I think articulation needs to be clearer for Harini. Earlier, Harini, during your part, there were a lot of words, examples that you provided, like when you were talking about the food, the way that you pronounce the food. I know you can pronounce them, but it was not as clear. So maybe articulation and voice projection needs to be slightly louder. Okay, and moving on from there, for Jayu, I think your delivery should have more conversational factor because the others, I think they did a very good job balancing between sounding formal and interacting with one another. But your part, it sounds as if you were going through some script. You might or you might not, but that's what it appears to me when you were presenting. So we need to increase a little bit on the conversational factor because everyone, they had that. So when we shifted to your part, there's just a slight inconsistency because everyone is doing well. And then your part, it's not bad, but it's obvious since everyone does well. So I'm not saying you didn't do a good job, but because everyone does such a great job, so when we go to your part, if it's not the same delivery, then it's going to be noticeable. So be careful on that as well. Let's see. Oh, and one more thing for Millie, when you were presenting, be careful with pronunciation, especially for jargon, because you had a couple of difficult words or technical terms. One in particular is the word dopamine, which you kept on pronouncing as dopamine, which is wrong. And I would assume a psychologist would know how to pronounce it. So in the future, if you have any technical terms or any scientific words or whatever that might be a bit difficult, we want to make sure the pronunciation is correct, especially if you're playing a psychologist. If, let's say, you're playing a student, probably we can let it slide because your character is a student, so it kind of makes sense if you do not know how to pronounce it. But as a psychologist, if that's your character, then it can decrease your credibility a little bit. So be careful with pronunciation. But the other word you pronounce them properly is just the word dopamine that you need to make sure you pronounce properly. But the whole symposium, like I said, very minor things. The whole symposium, I thought you did a very good job. Introduction was very good, very brief, very clear on what you were going to talk about. And I like that each of the character, they has like a little bit of background given, and the background is just enough. It's not too much and it's not too little as well. And that's what we want out of symposium, because we don't want to give their life story, but we want to get to know them as a speaker, and you did that. And as content, I thought your logos and ethos were very strong. Each point of view is supported by different factual information, and each speaker I thought was implemented properly. Like it makes sense that each of the speaker, they were talking about what they were talking about. So the logos and ethos I thought very, very strong. Pathos, however, is slightly weaker. Okay, I did sense there are some pathos here and there, especially when we have the interaction between Millie and Jayu, but it's a bit weaker there because of the delivery. So if we have a bit more in terms of the intonation during that delivery, probably it could have been stronger, because that's where the emotion lies in your symposium, because we want to kind of like sympathize, or for students to empathize to, you know, your situation, because your background is basically a student that's very overwhelmed, and you also have friends who, you know, do self-harm, and this is something that we want people to kind of gravitate towards. But obviously it's a very serious matter, and you provided and you discussed well, but emotions part, I was not there yet. So I wish the intonation was a little bit stronger at that part. Okay, your delivery, however, I think every speaker you did very well. Most speakers, I feel articulation is very good, expressiveness is there, and what I like also, every speaker has great etiquette. And everyone did not neglect to thank the moderator or the previous speaker before they speak, so that's a very good thing. Speakers also look the part when you are dressing up and also when you are speaking. That's also a plus. And your organization is also very good. It makes sense, it flows very well, and it helps the audience to understand what you're trying to present. So organization is very good. You also had back and forth, but you did not overdo it. So I thought that was good. This is a good amount. You had a lot of back and forth between speakers, but you did not have it too much to the point that it sounded too informal. So I thought that part was very good. You did not do it too much, because I told you there should be some kind of interaction. So you did not overdo it. So I thought that part was very great. And overall, the whole symposium, I thought, is informational, is very fun to listen to, and at the same time, it's also a good presentation. As for you, Yishun, as the moderator, I think you did a very good job. You did manage the discussion very well. You were very formal, but at the same time, you were still very engaging, and you were also very approachable and slightly casual, but you did not sound too informal. And that's very good, because we have to think about the speakers, we also have to think about the audience, and we have to think about the occasion. So I think as the moderator, you did a very good job balancing between formality and also casual delivery. So it was enjoyable listening to you. And the rest of the speakers, I think you fit Yishuan great energy as well. So as a whole, I think the discussion was very good. I like the summary that you provided as well, Yishuan. You did not overdo it. You did not summarize after every speaker, which can be very tiring if you did that, but you did not. So that's very good. And the last also I thought was very good. The questioning part, I had a suspicion it was scripted. Is it scripted? Is Yvent, Vian helping you? No.
I don't think so.
Don't think so. All right.
I was thinking and I got stuck in between also when I was telling the answer. I think you would have seen me stumbling so much.
Okay, no problem. But I still think that part was smooth. I did notice a little bit of stutter, but it's not to the point that it sounded terrible. In fact, I thought it sounded believable as well, because that's how people actually speak during Q&A. So I think it was not terrible when you started during the Q&A, because that was less planned, I would assume. So overall, I really enjoyed the symposium. Organization, content, everything is very strong. Pathos probably could have been slightly stronger in terms of delivery. But other than that, the whole symposium is very good, and everyone fits off each other's energy very, very well. And you also did not neglect the fact that this is educational purposes. There's a lot of information that was provided. So overall, this is a good example of a symposium where it's formal, but at the same time, it's also quite casual and easy to listen to. And we get to learn something as well. So I think all of you did a very good job with the planning, delivery, and also organization. So overall, all of you did, in my opinion, a very good job. So well done. Okay, congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
welcome.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so well done, everyone. Okay, so now let's, and thank you for the work that you've put into it, everyone from Group A. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Now let's move on to the next speaker. Can we have Group D?
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. So Group D, you have, if I recall, 6 members?
Yes, correct. 6 members.
Okay, so everyone's here. Azi, are you on your phone? Okay. All right, so are you all ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you may begin now. So all the best for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are Group D, and today we are going to discuss a topic called gaming disorder. I believe that when we are young, most of us play games. But have you ever been addicted to the games you play? And today we're going to discuss this topic. Anyways, before we start, let me introduce our guest today. Our first guest is Mr. Kaifeng. He's the child of Mr. Sutej. He is currently new to the gaming industry, but he earns a living by gaming. He started his career at the age of 18, but now he is one of the victims of this disorder. Our second guest is Mr. Sutej. Mr. Sutej is the parent of Mr. Kaifeng. Now, his child is a victim of gaming disorder. He has mixed feelings about his child's future and his health. How he noticed his child has this disorder is through the time spent with the family, and his behavior changes. But Mr. Sutish is worried about his child addiction in the future. And now let's go on to the third guest, is Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee is a psychologist from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse of the World Health Organization. He has currently have 20 years of experience. And previously, Dr. Lee is responsible for the cases of the pro gamer. And the fourth guest is Mr. Wei Huan. He's a school teacher who has consulted batches of students and is an ex-teacher of Mr. Kai Feng. And lastly, we have Mr. Ziyi, who is a pro gamer who had suffered the experience of suffering through this gaming disorder. And now he has overcome this disorder. Before we start, if you, the audience, have any questions, feel free to ask in the meeting chat or unmute your mic after we're done with the talk. Now, let's go through the questions. Dr. Lee, now let's invite Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee, can you tell us what is gaming disorder? Dr. Lee, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cheng Hao, for the introduction just now, and a good morning to everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. So, now, a question that people always ask me is, am I addicted to playing video games? Or do I have a problem with playing video games? And that is a good question to start off with. Now, so, how do you know if gaming is a problem for you or is a way to help you? As gaming can provide a lot of positive effects to us too. It can help us de-stress, can help us make some connection with people. We can even make new friends through playing video games. See? So, if you spend your whole weekend playing video games only, is that a problem to you? Now, I would say it is a problem to you if it is getting in the way of doing what you want to do. You see, in the word addiction means that it's something that impairs your function. Means that something becomes an addiction when it impairs your function. So, is the gaming getting in the way of academic performance? Are you studying less and gaming more and failing your grades? Is gaming interfering with your health? Are you getting less sleep because of gaming? Or do you need to lose weight but find yourself playing games and gaining weight? So, if you are asking yourself this question, whether or not gaming is addiction, are you having an addiction to gaming? Just think, is it stopping you from doing something you want to do? So, gaming may be a good way to de-stress, but if you keep on playing games and without trying to deal with the sources of your stress or problems and let it grow, it is a problem for you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee, for the information. So basically, gaming disorder is people can't stop themselves for long hours of gaming. And now, let's invite Mr. Sutish. Mr. Sutish, what is your experience at home with Mr. Kai Feng when he started his gaming career?
Thank you so much, Mr. Cheng Hao, and a very good morning to the audience and everyone present here today. My name is Sutej, and I'm actually Kai Feng's dad, yes. Now, some of you might be wondering, how is he even my kid? He looks totally different than me. Well, that's because he looks exactly like his mom. And sadly, there's no resemblance between me and him. Okay, anyways, Mr. Cheng Hao, your question was, what am I experiencing at home right now when my son started his gaming career or gaming in general, am I right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, to start off, I want to say that I'm actually very proud of what he's doing. Now, most of us here were forced to believe that, to earn good amount of money, it's important to get a degree or even a master's, or at least that's how I started to make a living for myself. But my son here started gaming last year when he was 18, and now he's getting paid to play at the age of 19. And not to mention that he loves what he does, But I still noticed a certain things when he started gaming. The first and obvious symptom was he spent less time with his family members. For example, he sits in his room all day long, and when the rest of us are sitting at the dining room to have dinner together, he would be missing in action. Or he brings his food up to his room and sits right in front of the computer. And as a parent, I was worried because I care about having a healthy and strong relationship with one another, especially with my family members. And since most of us here are busy during the day, dinner time is where we can actually bond with one another. So when he does this, it just makes me feel like we aren't as close as before, One day, suddenly I woke up at 3 a.m. because I was thirsty and I needed some water, okay? And when I got out of my room, I could still see the light in his room turned on. When I entered his room, I saw him gaming, and that is when I realized he was addicted to it. I sat down together with my wife and talked to him about it, and it still didn't work. It only got worse, and he started to become more aggressive day by day. And yes, that is what I've experienced at home.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sutesh, for attending this talk with us. I can certainly see how your child is getting addicted to gaming day by day. I believe that when children are still young, parents should monitor their phones or gadgets. And this is because when I was eating at a restaurant, I saw this young child. He was playing a game and he can't stop playing until his mom took away his phone.
Yeah, exactly. I actually witnessed something similar to what you have said, Mr. Cheng Hao. A few days back, I went to a restaurant and I saw a child crying constantly. But what was shocking was his mom actually gave him a tablet to make him stop crying. Damn, the world has changed a lot, man.
Yes, correct, Mr. Sutesh. The world has definitely changed a lot. I don't think I would ever do that, as a child might take advantage of this situation in the future. This is something we should not follow. Anyways, now let's invite Mr. Wei Huan and ask him some questions. Mr. Wei Huan, can you tell us about the experience in school when Mr. Kai Feng is still studying? And can you tell us more details about the situation with you and Mr. Kai Feng?
Sure, Mr. Cheng Hao. Kaifeng was my previous student who I worried about. He was a good student at first, but didn't know starting from when. He was late to the class and even absent from the class often. He always looked exhausted during the class and sometimes even slept over the class. As a result of not paying attention in the class and frequent absence from the class, his exam results were falling to the trough. Whenever I questioned him, he always gave me the same reason, that he worked part-time until late at night. So he woke up late in the morning. In the beginning, I trusted his word, but after several times, I realized something was wrong and suspected that he might be lying. One day, I really can't tolerate him, so I called his father, Mr. Sutej, to find out what's happened to Kaifeng. Is he really going to work part-time until late at night? However, the truth had got me shocked. His father told me that he was playing video games until the early hours and did not work on any part-time job. His parents had told him not to get addicted to video games, but he never listened to their advice. His father only realized Kaifeng was often absent from the school after being told by me. I had sent him to the school counseling team to get him counseled. At first, after he was counseled, he did follow the school timetable and did not attend late or absent from the class. Soon afterwards, he changed back to square one. I felt angry as I scolded him. What are you going to be in your future? A beggar or a useless person who only knows playing video games? He refused. I want and I will become an esports player. I will prove it to you when I become an esports player. And who knows, he finally becomes an esports player. I'm sorry for expressing fear in front of you and for the sharpest words I had been spoken. I had questions for you, Kaifeng. How you got addicted to video games and how do you feel when you were addicted to them?
It feels good to get paid for what I love to do. Gaming is one of the things that make me feel relaxed and I'm quite good at it. But I just can't force myself to stop gaming. At first, when gaming is still not my career, I do not feel anything that is affecting my life. And when I started my gaming career, I have pressure because if I don't practice more and making improvements, I will not be able to have a chance to continue my career. So I decided to spend more time gaming even during the sleeping hour. During the school day, I often wake up late and causing me always be late to school. And I can't stop thinking of gaming during classes and making me not focusing on the class. As I mentioned that I gave up my bedtime so that I can play game. I'm always tired and will fall asleep during classes. As the consequences of me always sleeping during classes, I miss everything that the teacher had taught and causing my grades to drop. What I think that causing me the biggest problem is that I'm slowly becoming antisocial. I wouldn't want to talk to anyone because I'm so into thinking of when can I play games. When the other try to talk to me, I will feel that they are just annoying me. So I would just shout at them and ask them to leave me alone.
Thank you, Mr. Kaifeng. Dr. Lee, since you're an experienced psychologist, could you share your experience, tell us and elaborate on the causes of addiction?
Sure, Mr. Wei Huan. Or you see, nowadays, game creators are always finding more ways to get people to play their games for as long as possible. Many games nowadays are designed to make us feel attached to the games. As a human being, we would always want to be the best at something. And to be the best in games means that we have to put a lot of effort and time into getting the best equipment, the best characters, the highest levels in those games. And after we spend such a long time and effort into those games, we will not feel like stopping or giving out on that game as it will be a waste, you see. And besides that, money is also a big factor that makes people attached to the games nowadays. Nowadays games, people like to implement little mechanics like randomized loot box or like randomized packets to help people get the reward they want. Or you can spend money for in-game cosmetics or to make the game easier for you. This is why they'll keep playing the games on and on. Furthermore, video games also provide people with a place to escape from reality, as playing video games help release dopamines into the brains. Dopamines are hormones that will make you feel good or pleasure. So, when you come home after a stressful day of work or a long day of school, you can de-stress by playing video games when they release the dopamines in your brain. But sometimes people get too dependent on games, and instead of actually trying to fix the problems in their real life, they go to games as a way to avoid facing their problems and the negative feelings that come when facing their problems. Now, this is not that good, as humans, we can build tolerance towards things. So for example, for the first time you drink alcohol, you might get drunk easily. But after a while, you keep drinking on and on, your body will develop a certain tolerance towards alcohol and you will not get drunk easily. Same thing applies to playing video games. So when you play video games for the first time, your brain will release dopamines which will make you feel good. But after a while, if you keep playing them constantly, the constant stream of dopamine in your brain, your body will develop a tolerance towards that constant stream of dopamine. And this is a problem, as once you start to stop playing games, you need means that you have to go and find other activities to do. But since your brain is already tolerant to the constant stream of dopamines, when you do other activities such as going out with your friends, playing badminton or football, it might not feel as fun. So you will not like doing those activities anymore. Since you don't like doing those other activities, in the end, you will have to go back to playing video games for that source of dopamine.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for the information. So for everyone's information, the causes of gaming disorder is because of the design of the game. This is because game developers are trying to make people attach to the game, so people will play non-stop. And secondly, video games provides people with a place to escape from reality and their troubles in life. And lastly, it's because people can increase their tolerance on building dopamine towards playing games. Therefore, when people try to do other activities, they can't really enjoy them, so they will start think of playing games instead.
That makes me wonder, when my child is facing this issue, how would it impact his future? Is he even going to have a healthy social life?
Okay. I understand your worries, Mr. Sutej, but fear not, sir, as addiction is not permanent. The best course of action is to seek out a professional therapist to ensure that your son can get all the support he can to help him overcome his gaming addiction. In therapy, we will help patients to realize how their gaming addiction has impacted their lives. And then, we will help them by making a schedule for them so that they can control their time spent on playing games. And we will closely monitor their condition and how they feel towards gaming. By limiting the time spent on gaming, the brain can start to reset the tolerance towards the constant stream of dopamine in the brain. But time taken for people's brain to reset can differ from case to case. For one of my cases, which is Mr. Ziyi's case, it took him approximately 4 months to fully reset his dopamine tolerance level.
Thank you for the explanation by Dr. Lee. The treatment is to help patients by making them realize the negative effects of gaming addiction. That's the first point. And therefore, they will schedule for them to control their time spent on the game and closely monitor their conditions. And now let's invite Mr. Ziyi. Mr. Ziyi, can you tell us more about the treatment in depth? And what is your experience when you deal with this disorder?
Okay, thank you, Cheng Hao. For my treatment of my addiction towards gaming, I was recommended to undergo therapy, and then I had to follow a tight schedule to help aid my addiction. I wasn't addicted to spending money or gambling into games. I was just simply addicted to the game mechanics and enjoying the ride along the way. Too much so that I've spent more time than I'm supposed to. But in therapy, they help you find out what level of addiction that you are on. And Dr. Lee said that I had developed a tolerance towards dopamine and helped me set up with a schedule to help deal with it. The schedule helped me limiting the hours spent on games. I tried to help too by doing the least I could, which was not gaming. So I picked up a new sport. My friends was well aware of the addiction I have, so seeing me join them for sports rather than gaming was quite a shock for them. The effects of my gaming addiction immediately hit me when I tried to do something other than gaming. It just made everything else felt tedious and unexciting. Anything that I was doing that weren't gaming just felt awful. But by the end of the third month, I wouldn't feel that bad for not being able to play games. On the very last month of the treatment from Dr. Lee, my brain had fully reset, and I started to enjoy doing activities that wasn't gaming. But I had to submit a weekly report about how many hours that I've been on, my feeling or thoughts on the week, even though it wasn't to my liking at first, but I must come to terms with it to cure the addiction.
Thank you, Mr. Ziyi, for sharing your experience and treatment depth. Mr. Ziyi, do you still play games after you have overcome this disorder? And how do you feel after the treatment?
Oh, I feel great, especially after the treatment with Dr. Lee. And I've started my career as a professional gamer after the treatment. I do still play games daily, but I'm much more willing to give up more free time from gaming to do something else.
Thank you, Mr. Ziyi, for your response. Now let's invite Mr. Kaifeng. Mr. Kaifeng, can you tell us what is your feedback after hearing this talk and what idea you want to implement in the future to help you?
It makes me feel like the decision that I made before is so foolish. In this moment, I'm really sure that I will need to go and seek help from the professional therapist and strictly follow the schedule given. And before I do that, I think that I need to stop myself from gaming late at night, and I should find a hobby to work with so that I can have a healthier life.
I hope this will be very helpful for you, son. Remember, your mom and I love you so much, and we just hope the best for you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your response. That's all from our guest today. Now let's proceed to the Q&A session. Any questions?
All right, I have one question. All right, so any of the speakers can take this. All right, okay, when it comes to video game addiction, as we can see here, obviously it can be a problem, or it can also be something that's not a problem. Like, let's say for a parent, right? How do they know, or what are the signs that they have to look for if they feel like their children might be playing too much, but it's not necessarily an addiction or not necessarily a negative factor to their life? How can we differentiate between addiction or people who love playing games, probably a bit excessively, but not towards addiction yet? So how do we distinguish the two?
in my opinion, I feel like as long as you are able to do what you like, and if you think that that is not getting into whatever daily tasks that you are supposed to do on the day, and if you are able to accomplish all your goals, other goals and responsibilities for the day, it should be good enough for starters. Yeah.
I would also like to add on something. Like, as I
Sure.
have said in the beginning, like if you are not using gaming as a way to like avoid your problems, like let's say you are facing some stress in life, maybe you are fighting with your parents or something, but if you use video games to like deal with the emotions, to avoid feeling the sadness, the anger and all that, then video game is not really the way to go, because in the end you will always have to deal with the problems instead of letting it fester and growing bigger and bigger. So if you see video games as like a back door or like a exit for you to go out of reality and try to avoid everything in life, then you have an addiction and it's not good for you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And if there's no more question, you can conclude your discussion.
Okay, so that's all for the Q&A session for today. I hope, thank you for everyone for participating and listening to the talk with us. I hope you learned something new from this talk. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, let's talk about the feedback first. As usual, we'll start with the improvements or the negatives first. Okay, first of all, like in the beginning, for the introduction, when you were introducing each of the speaker, right, Cheng Hao, I feel certain things could have been organized a little bit more effectively. As an example, you introduced Kai Feng first, which makes sense because he's like the addict in this situation. But there was one sentence that you said, he's actually the son of Sutesh. But at that point, we have not introduced Sutesh yet as the speaker. So I thought the organization is slightly awkward there. I feel you could have just just mention who Kai Feng is. And when we introduce Sutesh, then we reveal that information that, actually Sutesh is the father of Kai Feng, and that's their relationship. So this is still a minor thing, but I feel the organization in the introduction could have probably been a little bit more smooth, so that when people are listening, it's a bit easier to digest the information and it will be a bit more consistent in terms of organization. Okay, and after that, when it comes to the content, okay, content, I think, wait, 1 second. All right, content, I will talk about this because most of it is positive. Okay, let's talk about your organization. Okay, organization, there's a lot of back and forth earlier, and I like that because it has that sense of forum discussions, and it's very good. It was also quite formal. There were moments where the formality really was affected. I'll go about it after this. But between the speakers, when we have that back and forth, there's a lot of disengagement between some speakers with the moderator or some speakers with another speaker. I wish there was a bit more intonation and probably conversational factor by more speakers, so that when we have that interaction, it would actually be dynamic. Because when we want to have, all of this back and forth, it's basically to increase how dynamic your discussion is and how believable this is, that it's an actual forum. So I did not believe at certain parts that you were actually engaged in discussion with one another, but rather some speakers really relied on the script without trying to connect with the other speakers. And this happens more than once. So it really takes the audience out when we listen to your symposium, because there's a lot of disengagement there. Okay, and there are one moment I felt where formality decreases, and I think this is probably just a slip of the tongue. I don't think this is in your script. I think Sutesh, you casually mentioned, I think it's the part at the question where you were talking about the mother giving a gadget to the child at the restaurant, and Sutesh casually mentioned Yeah, it is a different world now, man. So that tone is a little bit more casual, but I feel that's probably a bit of a slip of the tongue. So we have to be a bit careful because the tone or the phrasing of the word or sentence is a little bit more casual rather than formal. Okay, in terms of delivery, most of you did well. Okay, but Z, I think you did decent. But we still probably could work a bit more on your intonation because there were a couple of parts that I could feel that you were probably following the script too much, or you were probably, it's either memorizing or following the script. But you are almost there, Z, so I want you to push a little bit more for your intonation. Okay, but the problem that I had mostly was either with Kai Feng and also Wei Hun. Kai Feng, you sounded so rehearsed. The way you deliver your part, it was like word by word. It sounded like you were reading something, or it sounded like you memorized it. You didn't mean what you say, and it just came out of your mouth because you had to present. So Kai Feng, you have to rely a lot less on either reading or memorizing, whichever that you depended on earlier, because it does not work in this format of presentation. And Wei Huan, you still need a lot of improvement on intonation. Your voice projection I thought was very good, but intonation still sounded like you were reciting the script. And your part was supposed to be, I think you were the kind of teacher that was a little bit, I don't know, I wouldn't say mad, but you were probably frustrated or surprised, things like that. But I did not get that. The words were good. It sounded like you were kind of shocked or frustrated by what Kai Feng is doing, but I did not believe it listening to your delivery. So there should be a bit more in terms of your intonation. And I think at one point you also mentioned that you were either mad or angry, but I don't get that. It sounded like you were reciting or you were reading off something. So for you, if you were reading, a lot less of that in the next semester, because if you keep on reading, we cannot improve on the intonation. But your voice projection is good. We just need to improve on intonation, and we have to have that conversational factor. And I did not get that. Before we get to the intonation and feelings and everything, let's try to present as if you are conversing with your friends first. Then we can try to work on putting more intonation, putting more feelings and emotions in your delivery. Okay, so overall, I think the biggest weakness here is there's a lot of disengagement between different speakers during the whole symposium. That takes out, I mean, for me as an audience, it takes me out because most of you did very well. And now let's move on to the positive. Okay, the positive, I thought the introduction, the definition was great. It was introduced very well. The content was also very strong in every department. Your pathos was very good, very strong. I like the story where Sutesh was talking about his experience finding out that his son is actually an addict. That was very relatable, even though I've never been a parent, but it's somehow relatable because of the delivery. So this is what we want. When people listen to your story, it sounds like, oh, I've experienced this, or I've heard something about this, and we can get connected to the story. So that was good and very engaging. And your ethos and logos were also very good. Discussion, argument, argued very well. Logos was used properly to support your discussion. Organization quite decent because there's a lot of back and forth, but we need to have connection between the speakers. In terms of delivery, I think Cheng Hao, Sutesh, and Kritakon, you did very, very well. Projection was very good. Composure was very well delivered, and intonation was also very great. Kudos for the three of you. I think you were the highlight earlier. And this is also the reason why I wish everyone would step up just a little bit more. You don't have to be the same level as everyone, but if you had a bit more of that conversational factor, you would match the others. And this is something of a problem in a group presentation because we have to look at the other members, and whatever energy or expressiveness that they are giving, we have to challenge ourselves to give that. Because when we have like Cheng Hao, Sutesh, and Kritakon, they were very believable. and certain parts we go to your parts, then it takes the audience out. And we also don't want people to be listening to only Cheng Hao, Sutesh, and Kritakon, because their part is, I would say, not the whole symposium. There were more information coming from the other speakers that makes it a consistent story. So I think Cheng Hao, Sutesh, Kritakon, you did very, very well. But the others, you need to step up your game just a little bit more if you still have any kind of presentation in a group. Okay, moderator, Cheng Hao, because your role, in my opinion, was, again, the biggest, which makes sense because you are the moderator. There's a lot of things that I like in terms of the way that you moderated earlier. You were very composed, so that's very good. I feel a sense of connection when you were interacting with each other. That's great as well. And I especially like the way that you started your question. You did not go straight into the question. You provided some kind of segue or some kind of introduction or some kind of story. Then you ask question. Like, for example, when you said you experienced this earlier when you go to the restaurant and you see that. And you were basically using that story to prompt Sutesh for a reply. I really like that because, number one, obviously moderator has to be very neutral, but at the same time, you also want you to sound approachable and likable, and you did that. So when you did that, I feel it's very easy to get connected. And if I was one of the speaker, I would probably feel very appreciated and very engaged to your questions. I think you did very, very well with how you phrase the questions, with how you get to the question. Everything was very good. The role of the moderator, I thought, was implemented very, very well, and you managed to moderate the whole discussion very well. But again, the weakness here is, I think, expressiveness and also effort by certain speakers are not on par with some. So in a group presentation, you always have to remember that the energy, expressiveness have to be quite similar. It does not have to be on the same level, but you have to challenge yourself a little bit. But overall, Cheng Hao, Sutesh, Kritakon, I think you did very, very well. Okay, congratulations. Ziyi, Kai Feng, and Wei Hun, okay, you did decent. It's not terrible, but we still need to work, especially on your intonation and how you converse and get connected with the other speakers. So we need a little bit more work in that matter. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. You did well. Okay, very good, everyone. All right, so now let's move on to Group C. Lombe, are you on your phone? Okay, all right, no problem.
Sorry, I have issues with my laptop, so like I'm using my phone.
Okay, no problem. No problem. We can see like half of you, so make sure you do not move too much.
Oh, okay.
This is just fine, but do not move too much. Then we might not see you and you might go out of the picture. So this position is good.
Okay.
All right. Okay, the others, are you ready? Okay, so if
Yes, sir.
you... Okay, ready. All right, so if you're ready, all the best. So let's begin with your presentation. All right, so moderator, Lombe, you may start the discussion.
Okay, sir, thank you. Good morning, sir, and my fellow classmates. I'm glad to have every one of you here. I'm the Chief Executive Moderator, Lombe Mwana, and our team would like to thank and welcome you to our seminar. I'm going to discuss alcohol with some baked potatoes in our country, which is our respected Deputy Prime Minister Bien, Minister of Transport, Ms. Winky, Minister of Health, Fanchi, a head of police, Mr. Siley, and a teenager named Mr. Sam. Alcohol is caused for several reasons, such as socialization, relaxation, celebration, and meditation, and reducing fear, making people feel and act unexpectedly. As we all know, Alcohol is deeply a critical problem today. It can harm our health and cause a drunk driving accidents when we overdrink. Every year, thousands of people die from drinking and driving. It is a significant contribution to 27% of all traffic accidents, according to studies. In some countries, excess alcohol in the blood is discovered in around 20% of short death drivers, while it is around 70% of wooden drivers in low and middle class income countries. We can drink alcohol in Malaysia, yes, but I had someone said that Muslims are prohibited from drinking alcohol.
Yes, you are right. In Malaysia, alcohol is prohibited for Muslim consumers as Muslims are prohibited from drinking alcohol under Malaysian Sharia law. Alcohol is prohibited for Muslims in the Malaysian states of Kelantan and Terengganu. But despite being a Muslim majority country, Malaysia allows non-Muslims to buy alcohol except for Kelantan and Terengganu, which are only for Muslims, and there are no nationwide alcohol bans in the country. The Islamic Party in Malaysia respect non-Muslim rights, with non-Muslim establishments such as Chinese restaurants and grocery stores exempt from such bans by having a license to sell alcoholic beverages. The federal area of Kuala Lumpur has the highest alcohol consumption in the country, followed by Sarawak and Sabah in second and third place respectively.
That's true. As an Indian from Selangor, I'm allowed to drink alcohol in Malaysia. But still, I respect Muslims and I don't drink it in front of them, and I want to invite them to parties.
I'm so glad to know that you respect each other. Little I know that. However, is there only foreign alcohol brand in our country? Do we have some local ones too? Can anyone elaborate more on this?
If I may?
Sure.
Well, there are three traditional alcoholic beverages produced in our country, which are arak, samsu, and tuak. Arak is an alcoholic beverage made from the juice of the coconut palm tree. As for samsu, samsu is a locally distilled potent spirit with an alcohol content ranging from 37% to 70%. There are over 150 samsu brands available on the market. Samsu drinkers constitute most alcohol consumers among the poor in rural areas. As for tuak, tuak is a traditional homemade rice wine enjoyed by indigenous people in Sabah and Sarawak during communal gatherings and harvest festivals such as Gawai, Dayak, and Kamatan. In the meantime, consumption of traditional alcoholic beverages in the Malay Peninsula is lower because the Malay sultanates adhere to Islamic principles of alcohol.
Thanks to our respected Deputy Prime Minister Vie, you have broadened our knowledge about local alcohol in Malaysia. As we all know, people like to drink too much alcohol, but alcohol can lead also to drunk driving crash.
Yes, drink and driving are an accident under influence of alcohol, also known as driving under the influence DUI. It was a serious public health problem that affects drivers and pedestrians. Alcohol is a substance that slows down the activity of the driver of the central nervous system, which is our brain. Alcohol is absorbed through the stomach bowl and it will then enter the bloodstream and it will be digested by the liver. Driver may have difficulty focusing on the road environment even with low level of alcohol consumption. They may lose judgment when driving. Alcohol has a harmful effect on on the driver ability so that it is hard for the driver to assess the sense of distance on the road. Sometimes it will reduce the coordination. It is not easy to track moving objects. It reduces the driver ability to control the brake. As a result, please do not drive when you take after taking alcohol. You can call a Grab.
But how does police deal with such criminals? Can anyone enlighten us about that issue?
So, I don't want to sound cliche since we've all heard these phrases before. Don't drink and drive, don't smoke and drift, etc. Haven't we? So, however the case, these regulations aren't taken seriously nowadays because they seem to be like the same monotonous Feliz Navidad song that usually comes around festive period of the year. So, I'd just like to give you a recap of about what happens nowadays to people that are trying to play it slick and take advantage of the law. So first and foremost, let's talk about the procedures that are taken in evaluation of alcohol to the driver or fellow road users. Now, we know that most people think that the police are only out to get alcohol drivers or alcohol users late at night, since that's the time such people move due to clearance of roads. However, my team and I should hide inconspicuously amongst our surroundings and pounce on road users that are trying during daytime to evaluate alcohol drivers who drive recklessly, drink other contents, thereby claiming it to be a bottle of bottled water or a beverage, or simply just play unnecessary loud music. I'm sorry to be a buzzkill, folks, but it's just the law. Moreover, I understand that some users may always want to claim their right to say that they are taking alcohol in minimal contents for satisfaction rather than to finish the entire bottle over depression or something. After all, the prescribed limits under the 45G of the Road Transport Act 1987 indicate that you can have about 35 micrograms, 80 milligrams, and 107 milligrams of alcohol in 100 milliliters of blood, urine, and breath, which might be approximately a bottle of beer or just a glass of whiskey, etc. However, these laws should state that you cannot take alcohol while drinking. It's an offense. In fact, how would you even know that you're exceeding the parameters at some point? After all, these different types of alcohols have different percentages in them. So just restrict yourself from taking any.
Yeah, you are right. Every year, more than 30,000 people tragically lost their life in the drunk driving crash. Globally, it has been one of the common reasons for death in road accidents. According to World Health Organization statistics, Malaysia has the one of lowest rate of alcohol-related road death. A global road safety report published in December 2018 shows that alcohol handled less than 1% of traffic-related deaths in Malaysia. It is far lower than the rate in some regional neighbors. Myanmar has the highest rate of alcohol-related road deaths in South Asia with 21%, followed by Thailand, 14%, and Singapore, which is 6%.
I agree with my subordinates. Issues to deal with illegal alcohol usage have become more problematic in Malaysia. There are also several cases of illegal alcohol sales in our country.
In fact, let me even press more on the essence of usage of illegal stimulant alcohols. Now, for an apparent reason, addicts' tolerance level has gone beyond their tolerance level. It's reached a level where they need to take fake stimulants, which are of lower quantity and quality, just because the alcohol percentages in them are way over the normal prescribed limits. Therefore, several troops, even beyond our force, have called for new measures to stem these smuggled and harmful products. Also, if you witness this, please report it. People's lives are at stake here, as these stimulants can lead to blindness and even death.
A private report by Atlanta also said that there were 3 cases in just a week in May 2020. A decrease in incidents involving drunk drivers began at the start of the year, including during the MCO period. About 191 drivers and motorcyclists were found driving and riding under the influence of alcohol, leading to 54 deaths. Based on the data collected, Malaysia recorded 33 cases of drunk driving accidents in 2011, and the number of car accidents for the following year was 136 cases. Over the year, the number of cases has increased. In 2013, the cases rose to 207. That is 71 more than last year. Malaysia has then recorded 229 cases in 2050 and it reached its peak of 237 deaths in 2016. The number of drunk driving cases has decreased in the following 2 years, which are 50 cases in 2017 and 54 cases in 2018. This decrease is caused by some punishment, such as extended permit restrictions, imprisonment for 5 to 10 years, and 10,000 financial fine. Approximately 1,147 people have passed away because of drunk driving accidents under the influence of alcohol during this 8 years.
I want to ask, apart from drunk driving, do human die because of alcohol harm to human health?
Yes, of course. Since alcohol abuse is a major source of health problem. According to World Health Organization (WHO), 3 million people die every day because of harmful alcohol use around the world, accounting for 5.9% of all deaths, that is 7.7% of all worldwide deaths among males, and 2.6% of all deaths among women. In addition, alcohol causes more than 200 diseases and handles 5.1% of the worldwide burden of disease and injury, as evaluated in disability-adjusted life years.
Wow, that's quite a number. I remember my cousin had an heart attack because he drank too much alcohol, but luckily, he recovered afterwards. Let us invite him to talk about his experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam and I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hi,
Hello,
Sam.
Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
I started drinking alcohol at 16. At the time, my drinking was fairly well under control. So what happened was I went to a party and a group of seniors who were very popular at the time offered me a drink. They said, if you drink this, all your problems will go away. Everyone's eyes were on me. I had no choice but to take it. Ever since then, I couldn't go a day without it. Every time I have a little bit too much of it, I've been told that I don't act my normal self. I tend to get angrier and more aggressive. There was this one time I slapped a complete stranger and I got reported, and eventually it got me suspended. This was very eye-opening for me, so I decided to quit. I stopped spending a lot of time with a lot of people who drank a lot. Besides that, drinking alcohol led to me having a heart attack. I lost a lot of my friends, disappointed my family, and it made me unhealthy.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Sam. It should be unsurprising that consuming excessive alcohol may bring a lot of negative effect to our health. The most primary health problem is linked to our liver, whereby it is unable to function well to remove all the alcohol, which is a form of toxic in our body. If this scenario continues, a high level of alcohol can damage liver cells and cause cirrhosis. If the condition deteriorates, liver transplantation is the only option, or else the person may die. Besides, since alcohol is a source of excess calories, excessive alcohol consumption raises blood pressure, which can lead to heart attack or stroke. Over intake of alcohol has the potential to cause malignancy on organs due to the damage caused by it. Alcohol also affects our brain and nervous system directly, which may result in hesitation in judgment that causes difficulty to think, talk, and coordinate our body movement properly. It is extremely dangerous since it may jeopardize our life or somehow affect our reputation. For instance, a drunk person will be lost control when driving, or may engage in sexual behavior or even take drugs while unconscious.
Listen, boy, you're the same cantanker as comrades that I'm looking for. You're lucky to have gotten away with one. If you ended up with me, you wouldn't have got away easy on this one. Anyways, besides, we are bringing in more stricter laws and better enforcement into our country. For example, those found guilty could be looking at heavier penalties in at least 20 years of jail time and approximately 150,000 ringgits in financial fines. Sam, do you understand how much that is? However, coming up with these laws would be pointless if there is lack of proper enforcement. There ought to be higher chances of getting caught and having these penalties applied for those comrades to take this seriously, such as you. Look at Germany, for instance, which has one of the highest alcohol consumptions per capita in Europe. Enforcement in their country is way too high to a point whereby you are fined and your driver's license is suspended if you are caught to be over the limit, which was according to an interviewee who used to work in their country. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, try it at your own risk, especially you, Sam. Try it at your own risk. But remember, the law will for sure catch up with you.
Whoa. Don't get me wrong. For me, alcohol was a habit, a source of a reward, a relief from stress and anxiety, whatever the word or reason seemed to be. It was a peaceful track that my brain was familiar and comfortable with. When I stopped drinking, my brain chose to follow a new track, to brand new rewards. For me, it was exercise. Everything I was going through, I would beat it through exercise. It generated the same happiness, but for those feelings, they lasted so much longer than the first drink. I found out that if I didn't exercise 1 day a week, it didn't matter so long as I continued doing it the other day. Exercise made me feel awesome, and I'm sure that this was the start to a brand new, healthier life. Accepting yourself is the key to living your happy, alcohol-free life. I've always had feelings of insecurity and anxiety. I thought that alcohol helped it, but it fueled these feelings every day.
It seems like alcohol is much worse than I imagined. Should alcohol be banned in our country? I imagine how much an impact this has on Malaysia. So if there is not much to ask, could someone talk more about how it has specifically affected the economy?
May I share my insight on this topic? Personally, I do not think alcohol should be banned, as alcohol industry is considered important to Malaysian economy. It contributes directly and indirectly to the Malaysian economy, that is 3.7 billion ringgit every year. Through the alcohol industry, the government have collected 2.1 billion ringgit directly from taxes and salaries. Not only that, it also covers 36% of GDP for the total beverage industry in Malaysia. The government has also indirectly raised 1.6 billion through its supply chain, trading partners, and suppliers. There are few reasons why alcohol industry is important. Firstly, two main alcohol industry players in Malaysia have contributed 160 million ringgit throughout the years to create positive change in our society by promoting education, protecting the environment, and advocating responsibilities consumption. Because secondly, the alcohol industry helps to increase the economy of other sectors. Because most of Malaysian business such as hotels, bars, restaurants, and supermarkets rely on alcohol as a source of income. Thirdly, it supports employment in Malaysia by contributing over 61,000 jobs across the value chain directly and indirectly that generates close to 800 million ringgit in salaries. There are also 3,300 employees directly employed by the alcohol industry and 57,000 employed indirectly through suppliers, distributors, transports, retailers, and many more. In a conclusion, every liter of alcohol sold by the alcohol industry contributes a lot to Malaysian economy through tax revenue for the government from excise duty and other taxes.
Our Prime Minister of Health, do you agree with Ms. Vien?
I agree with Vien, and I don't think alcohol should be banned too. This is because sometimes alcohol is harmful only when it's consumed in an excess amount. Moderate alcohol consumption may supply benefit to our health as well. According to Harvard University School of Public Health, a moderate quantity of alcohol can raise the level of good cholesterol, which leads to a lower risk of sex. According to a study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, alcohol drinkers were shown to have a 25% to 30% lower chance of erectile dysfunction. This means alcohol may have the tendency to improve libido, but further research is needed for approval. Apart from that, in a report conducted in 1993 among 391 can reduce the chance of catching a cold by 60% and is due to the antioxidant property of the wine. Lastly, alcohol also tends to lower the chance of getting type 2 diabetes and contribute to a healthy lifestyle.
One last thing I learned the hard way was that true friends are not those that drink with you. Real friends are those that will elevate you, impose conditions that will make you look good. So encircle yourself with people that will applaud your progress. If you have trouble with alcohol or know someone who's struggling with it, please congratulate them on the small steps they take to try and quit. Even if it's just them going sober for a week. You might not know how to approach them as they approach the sobriety milestone, but please do give a second thought to whether it's been a year or 10. It is significant to acknowledge the achievement and encourage them to continue that journey.
Thank you all for lending us your ears. We will gladly welcome any question and if anyone has any.
Hello?
Yeah?
I have a question.
Okay.
Sam here, you told us about your experience with alcohol and how you were able to overcome it, but you didn't actually tell us how do you feel right now? Like how do you go through your life without alcohol, because it was something that was a part of your life. So how do you feel right now as a person?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically I replaced like how it made me feel with exercise. So right now I'm feeling great. Like it's better than drinking, like drinking every day and stuff.
Okay, that's great.
Is there any question? Like any other question?
Let's sure have a look out a new song.
All right, I have one last question. Okay, when it comes to alcohol consumption, should we increase the age limit of people that should be allowed to buy alcohol? So what's your view on this? Because right now in Malaysia, it's 21, but should we consider increasing that to maybe 23, 24, 25 years of age? What's your opinion on this?
I think the government will not increase the age because it will cause uproar from the citizens. And I think the age limit is enough for.
Personally, I feel it should be increased according to my opinion, because I have seen, according to the parameters that I gave you, I have seen more people who are more aged, who take alcohol like in form of beer or whiskey, who are more in control when they're driving. Now, for people who are kind of illiterate as of now, okay, no, I'm gonna say illiterate, that's a bad word. Let me say people who are still infants who may take alcohol may not concentrate. It's like the medulla oblongatas don't function well. So they cannot focus on the road, even just from one glass of whiskey. So I feel that the age limit should be increased.
Okay, thank you for the response. If there's no more question, you may conclude the discussion.
So, like, drunk driving can cause someone to die. Half of them suffer major and minor injuries. Malaysia authorities have agreed that drunk drivers will face more punishment depending on the circumstances. Alcohol plays a big part in Malaysia's economy, and it increases another economic sectors. Lastly, it has created opportunities for the young by contributing 61,000 jobs and generate 800 ringgit million salary. Alcohol is good, but drinking too much is not good. Studies have shown us that alcohol has led to health problems, which is damaging our liver, cirrhosis, mental illnesses such as depression and cancer. So Sam started drinking alcohol when he was young. His seniors made him believe that alcohol could relieve him from stress and anxiety. And he was affected by it. Yeah, Sam felt disappointed and decided to take the right path by doing what was right. He started exercising to lose focus on alcohol. Exercise made him feel good, and that was the beginning of his healthier lifestyle. It was not easy, but over time, he managed to get sober and do the right things. According to Sam, at first, I believed drinking could help, but it made things worse. Real friends are those who elevate and push you to your better self. If you know someone who is under the influence of excessive alcohol, please give them advice and encourage them to continue taking the modest measures when they feel like they are not making it. Thank you all once again. I am the moderator, Lombe Mwana.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, that's a wild ride. Okay, let's talk about the symposium first. Let's talk about the improvements. Then we'll talk about the positive. There's a lot of positives as well, but there's a couple of improvements or certain things that I feel probably could have been a bit better. But let's talk about that first. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the delivery. Okay, delivery, like Winky, when you were presenting earlier, your part dealt with a lot of numbers. And I do know it's very difficult when you have a lot of statistics placed very near to one another. And what happened was your articulation was not very clear on some of the numbers, and it can be very confusing listening to the numbers. So when it comes to numbers, it can be very tricky. So what I usually suggest is either, number one, place them a bit further apart if you find it a bit difficult to pronounce them. Or number two, just prepare like a simple slides, just to put the numbers or the statistics to kind of help the audience to digest the number. Because when numbers are not articulated properly, it can be very difficult for the audience to absorb the statistics, because I think the part was very good. It's just the articulation probably could have been clearer. Okay, and moving on from there, intonation. Okay, the end, I think your intonation needs a little bit more work. It's almost there, okay, but just a little bit more work. And your part earlier, it's a bit inconsistent in a way that I felt the first part when you spoke was quite good, and then the second one was probably a more monotonous at that part. So maybe it could have been a bit more consistent, so that we can kind of match the expressiveness and energy of the other speakers as well. Okay, and the next thing is, as a group, okay, I feel there's a fluctuation of mood and formality. So let me tell you what I jot down here. Like, for example, at one part, Lombe, after Fang Chi was giving you the statistics of how many people have been involved in the situation, you said, wow. And the way that you said, wow, it sounded as if you were happy to hear that there's a lot of people that was involved in the, drunk driving and in the incident. So this part was a bit awkward and a bit inconsistent with the actual mood of the discussion. So be careful, because I get what you were trying to do. You were trying to put some kind of feelings into it, but it was mismatched a little bit, making me feel a bit awkward as an audience. Like, is she happy? So I think the fluctuation there was probably not well matched with the situation. And there were a couple of other parts as well. And number two, I like your characterization, Saili, but I think there are certain parts that I feel the formality probably fluctuate a little bit too much because of the characterization. At one part was when you were referring to Aaron as, I think you were referring to as you boy, and you were kind of like threatening him. So I felt that part was probably less formal as well. I get why you did that. It was kind of like a very in role for you as, you know, the police officer, but there's a slight fluctuation in formality there. But overall, I like the characterization, but at that part, I think you probably overdid it slightly at that part where you were referring to him as you boy, and you were as if you had something against him personally. I know that's not what you meant. You were probably putting character into it, but probably done a bit too much at that part. But the others, I think you did it well. It was, yes, do you want to say something?
No, I'll send that. I'm the sheriff. That's what I'm supposed to do.
All right.
So I can't come at him in a polite manner. I have to come at him aggressive so that he can also pay attention. Because I'm not physically there to arrest him or to beat him up.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm just saying, I'm not physically there to enforce the law and maybe just like pin it down on him. So I just had to do it over my tone so that he could feel the vigor in my voice. You feel me? So
all right, yeah. Okay, I get what you were doing, but at that part, the others I thought was good. I like your characterization, especially when you were trying to enforce why this is important. But I just feel at that one moment, it's probably a bit overdone, making it fluctuate a little bit. And also as a group, I feel there's a lot of different energy and vibe coming from different speakers. If we were able to kind of like kind of standardize a little bit on the vibe where we are going, then we can probably have a bit more consistency of where we go as a group. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's noticeable. There's a slight fluctuation in terms of mood and formality, but it's not something terrible that takes me out of it. It's entertaining, but as the occasion of, educational presentation, it does fluctuate a little bit. Okay. Overall, I also have a lot of good things to say about your group. Overall, I think the introduction was very well done. Speakers responded very well to your introduction. That was very good. And your content, at first, when you told me that you were going to relate it a little bit with law and religion, I was a bit concerned because it can be very sensitive. But I thought you did it very respectfully and very professionally, especially when you were talking about the religion part, because that's a bit more sensitive compared to the law. But I think you handled that discussion very, very well. You did not go beyond the limit. You relied more on factual information, and that's how people should handle topics that relate with religion. So I think you handled that correlation between alcohol and religion very, very well, because you did not provide too much of your personal information, or sorry, a personal opinion that can be controversial. You just relied on what's going on with the law. So that's great. So it's not a problem at all. And in fact, I enjoyed it because I think this is a good example of how we can tackle more sensitive issues in a good way. And your ethos and logos were also very strong. You had a lot of facts and they were meaningful. You did not just throw the numbers there because I told you had to have a lot of factual information. So overall, I think the numbers were used to support your discussion. Very, very well done. Your discussion was also very detailed, but there were a couple of parts that I felt the facts was probably a bit much, like, or we have one after another, and I feel you could have stopped at certain points. But giving too much is all right, in my opinion, because giving too much, it's easier for me to tell you to cut down a few more than rather not giving me at all. So I think your ethos and logos were very strong. Pathos was also very good, very expressive. And I like that we kind of have conclusion towards the end on Aaron's character, on how this person actually views his addiction, or he's now in recovery. So I like that as well, because as an audience, it makes me feel a bit more satisfied, because you basically crafted like a story. And as an audience, I felt, oh, I'm cheering for him now, and I feel satisfied with how you kind of concluded his story. Even though this is a presentation, symposium, but I like that you did not neglect, because in my opinion, his character is quite important for the audience, because this is where the emotions come in. So I like you provided a good closure to this character. Okay, and as a moderator, so Lombe, there's a couple of things here. As a moderator, Lombe, intonation in the beginning I thought was a bit flat. So we probably need to improve a bit more in the beginning, because when you were introducing them, I did not get a little bit of energy. But in the middle, you suddenly had way too much energy. So I don't know where that came from. In the beginning, almost no energy, as if in the middle you were drinking Red Bull or energy drinks, and suddenly you had way too much. So try to make sure you have a little bit less, not too less as well. In the beginning, I thought it was too less. And when you were moderating the questions, the summary after the Q&A, I felt just provide a simple disclaimer saying this is what you understood from the discussion, because we do not want the audience to misunderstand that this is your own personal opinion, because as moderator, you have to be a bit more neutral. So just provide there a simple statement saying that you're summarizing what everyone has said, and based on what everyone has discussed, this is what I felt, and this is the summary. Okay, but as a moderator, what you did well was, I think you were quite personable as a moderator, but it takes a while for you to get there. I think 5 minutes in, then you were probably a bit more comfortable with your role as the moderator. That's where I felt you shifted a little bit as your role as the moderator, and you became a bit better during that time, and it was actually enjoyable to listen to. But of course, be careful not to mismatch the energy and emotions with what the others are saying, because you were basically overacting. And comparing your character with, let's say, Siley's character, I think Siley's character, the characterization was well done. It makes sense that he has that character. Obviously, I said earlier, the familiarity decreases a bit, but that's fine, not a big issue. But for your part, Lombe, your characterization, suddenly it does not match what was discussed by the speakers. So overall, as a group, I thought it was an entertaining presentation. There's a lot of information that we can get from the presentation, and I think all of you did very, very well in terms of your delivery. I do not think any one of you did terribly. There's a couple of things that we probably need to polish, but as a group, I think you kind of delivered very well with each other. I just wish there's a bit more consistency on vibe. What kind of vibe are we going as a group? That is a bit inconsistent, but not a big problem. Because I understand when we have like different characters, it can be a bit varied in terms of the mood and feelings. But as a group, I think all of you did exceptional. It was very good, entertaining, but at the same time, informational as well. So overall, I think all 6 of you did a very good job. Okay, congratulations. You did very, very well today.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And thank you for the job well done. Okay, you did very, very well. Okay, so I think attendance is probably up. Okay, so for the rest, I'm going to dismiss you here now, but for attendance, attendance will be given manually. I'll just look at the report later. If you are there, I'll give attendance. So later I'll give it manually. But for today's class, we will dismiss here first. And I'm sorry again for being a bit late earlier. So the next three groups, we will have your presentation next week on Friday. Today's presenters, very good job. You all did very, very well. Great job. The next three groups, now you know a little bit on what you are expected to do. So maybe you can improve a bit more on what you have had prepared so that we can have great presentations as well next week. So for today's presenter, congratulations, you did well. Very, very good. And thank you for a lot of effort and a lot of work that you have put into this. Okay, thank you, everyone. So for today, we'll dismiss here, and attendance I'll give manually after this, all right?
Excuse me, sir.
Mm-hmm.
The Tuesday class,
Mm-hmm.
would it be like on?
I don't think so, because
Tuesdays
Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, it's a public holiday.
Yes, sir.
Wait, let me check if they publish it. I don't think. Okay, let me just double check that very quickly. No, we will not have class on Tuesday because Tuesday is a public holiday. Therefore, I will not be sending any invites. So enjoy your break on Tuesday. So I will see you next Friday for our last class. So no class on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Okay, you too. Have a good weekend, everyone. Take care. See you again next week on Friday.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Have a good day, everyone. See you next week. Yes, Lombe? Do you have a question, Lombe? Okay, no. All right, so I'll dismiss all of you here first. Good job.
Sorry, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah, for our report, we have 4,000 birds can be cut until 2,000.
Wait, how many words?
Almost 4,000.
What did you write?
We have 6 people. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, if you can cut down to 2,000, that would be great.
Okay. Until 2,000, is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Welcome. All right, so have a good day, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. See you next week.
Sir, another question.
Yes.
For the sample report, you have include the marks of script, like the table. Do we need to insert too?
Wait, what is this?
Like mark sheets, like.
No need. For the report, right? No need to send that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, welcome. Okay, goodbye.